Hi all, welcome to the Melton City Council Learning Directory. I'm Kevin from Perennial Garden Care, and today we're going to talk about pruning and maintaining your garden. But first, before we do any pruning, we need to talk about the tools and what tools we have. So we have our gloves, loppers. These loppers are good for the big branches that we'll need to cut. Good pair of secateurs. And we've got our hedges. So what we want to make sure is that they're nice and sharp. Whenever you're using tools, you want to make sure that they're working well. So what I do is, we've got a little bit of antiseptic mixed with a little bit of oil in there. We'll drop it. We give it a bit of a spray, both sides. It does two things. It lubricates the blade when we're going to run a stone over it, but it also disinfects it as well, which is good. So it helps us stop spreading diseases and stuff. So got this little stone here, $6, Bunnings. You can see that in there. You've got that little edge on an angle. You rub that stone away from yourself at the same angle, like that. Make sure it's lubricated. It doesn't work well when it's dry. And you just nice and circular motions like that. It'll give it a nice little sharp edge. Then to finish off there, you just run that flat along the back and it'll take off any burrs. So just a couple of times and that's good. That's ready to go. It's the same principle with your loppers as well. Just get yourself comfortable. Nice spray, both sides. Like to lean my leg somewhere. It's a little easier when it's bigger. And again, same circular motion. You want to do this just before every prune. It really helps get rid of burrs. And the same with the hedges. This serrated one's a little bit harder to do, but you've got that flat blade along there too, so we can use that one. So keep that there. Nice and sharp, and then voila, so we're done. So now we have nice disinfected sharp tools and we're ready to prune some trees. So we've got some fruit trees that we're going to have a look at now. So if you come with me guys, we'll do some pruning. So here we have some apricot trees, which ideally we'd prune after fruiting because they tend to get cankers, which is the gummy honey-like substance that comes out over open wounds. But since we've still got some leaves on it and we've got them here and they haven't been pruned, let's give them a go. We'll show you what to do. Okay, so we need to, first of all, we've got our sharp tools. So we've got our loppers for some of the bigger branches and our secateurs for some of the smaller ones. Ideally, when it comes to pruning fruit trees, we want to have a vase shape, so we want to keep it nice and open. So first of all, we want to get rid of all the stuff that's in the middle. Anything that's crossing over, anything that's touching something else, we want to get rid of it. So you can see this is sort of going over here. So we're going to cut that down the bottom. Now when it comes to cutting, we want a nice sharp cut, nice and clean. There's no ripping, there's no jagged edges. It's because our tools are sharpened, because we've sharpened them before. So nice and clean, we'll cut that out, put that down over there. So we're opening it up. So we want to open this up. So see, this is crossing over. We want the vase shape. So those cuts are as close to the main trunk as possible, but without having a really, really big opening. So just, I'd say, a couple of mil off the main trunk. That'll heal over quite nicely. So we can see any of these things that are sort of going in the middle here, we'll cut those off like that. Anything that's rubbing, any damaged branches. So we can see here, this branch here, it's rubbed against this stake and it's all damaged. So we can get rid of that. If it gets a little bit too hard, too big, then you'll know to go to the loppers. Just when it comes to the staking, I want to talk about staking just while we've got the stakes here. There's a misconception that all these trees always need to be staked. stakes are there to help support the plant when you first put them in, but you don't really want to leave them in for too long, because ideally you want to remove the stakes or make sure that they're tied loosely, because what you want the plant to be able to do is to move in the wind. It's like exercise for the plant. So what it does is that it thickens it up, it gives the trees some strong roots to hold it down, and you're not having this, well, babysit the plant, so to speak. So these stakes really, they could probably go now. We probably don't need these stakes, so we could cut these off and let this grow nice and healthy all by itself. It'll grow up to be a nice big strong tree, so we don't really need these anymore. So we can take those out, and we'll just pull that out without breaking it. If you just give it a bit of a shake, and away we go. All right, so that's good. Makes it a little bit easier to prune too, doesn't it? And we can take this out, one out over here. We've got, look at this, a broken branch. We'll prune that. We'll move this around, and we'll take that one out too. So there you go, looks better already. Now, when it comes to fruit trees, you want to make sure that you can actually reach the fruit. There's no point in having a big tall fruit tree if you can't reach the fruit. So we want to get it at a nice height, and we want to get it nice and open for us. Now, this is a relatively young tree, so we want to get it a nice structure. So we want to keep it open, and we want to cut some away, some of these lateral branches, so we can give it a nice big structure here. So what we do first of all is, after we've cut the middle out, we could probably take this one out here. Now this branch here is probably a little bit big for the secateurs, so we'll put those down and we'll get our good old trusty loppers. So we'll get in there, same principle, nice and close, and bang, and we're done. Nice clean cut, nice and healthy. It's already opened it up. Can you see how it's opened it up? That looks good already. So we get our secateurs and we'll start to shape it. So these branches here, we don't need to cut them all the way back, but if we go to about a third and we want to cut to an outside bud, and this again comes with most pruning, the same principle, outside buds. Now why do we cut to an outside bud? These nodes is where the next branch is going to grow, and if we cut it to an outside one, it's going to grow outwards. If we cut to one that's facing inwards, well then common sense tells us it's going to start going that way. So we want to cut to an outside bud. And if you can see these buds here, here's the nodes all along here. If you were doing this in springtime, you would be able to tell a little bit more easily which one was a flower bud and which one was a leaf bud. Now, generally speaking, the leaf buds are more pointy and the flower buds are more bulbous. If you leave it a little bit later, you'll be able to see the pinkness and the greenness of the leaf, and obviously the flower buds. So we want to cut back to green outside buds. So we have a look along here. Now we haven't got any colour here, but we know that this here, that's going to be a nice leaf bud there. That's going to be a nice leaf bud there. That's going to be a nice one there. So we've got that lateral shoot, so we'll go like this. Now, when it comes to cutting, another thing that you want to do is you want to cut on a little bit of an angle. Now why angle? Because if you cut that flat, the water from the air is going to be sitting on top of that wound, and it helps create, you know, diseases and bacteria forming. But if you cut it on a bit of an angle, the water droplet will sit and then run off. It'll help keep that dry. So we want to cut to an outside bud and on an angle. So we'll go through, we'll have a look and see. Outside bud, just cutting it back. Now this one, this is a nice healthy one here, but a little bit big for our secateurs. So we'll get the right tool, we'll use our loppers. So we'll find a bud, there's a nice one there. That's the last year's growth there. We'll pick this one here. So again, on an angle, and away we go. Now that's ripped a little bit, so what we can do, we can clean that up with our secateurs, like so. And make sure that's nice and sharp. There you go, nice and neat. Away we go. So we'll go all the way around the tree, outside buds, about, what's that, 10-15 centimetres away from the main trunk. You start from these outside here, cut that on an angle just above the nodes. So when you're cutting above those buds or nodes, it's probably about 5 to 10 mil above it, just to give it, you don't want to be cutting into it. I've got some nice flower buds here, and we've got a leaf one down there. So have a look and see. Just get a bit closer. You can see this now. You'll have a leaf bud in the middle, and you'll have flower buds inside there. You'll see. As they get bigger, they'll be more pronounced. You'll be able to see the different colours. But that's where we're cutting to. So if we were cutting, if it was a leaf bud there, we'd cut just above it, just there, like so. I should hold that like that for you. And you can see it's nice and healthy. It's got plenty of room. It'll shoot out that way. We'll keep going here, around. Now, apricots are very, very vigorous growers. So you want to really control it from the start so you can get that really nice vase shape. They grow very, very quickly, and they can really take over a garden. So you want to make sure that you got it under control from the start, because once it gets away from you, it's really hard to get it back again. There. And as you can see, it doesn't actually take all that long to prune these back. Now, can you imagine? Just imagine, there's no point in having fruit flower up there unless you want to go get a ladder out and start getting your fruit off the. You want to keep it so that it's a nice height, nice and open, and you're able to reach the fruit. And the one great thing about fruit trees is that not only do you get to have the fruit in summer, but in springtime you get these beautiful flowers that look magnificent. This is sort of going on the middle there, so we're going to take this off altogether. And so what we would do is that, generally speaking, a winter prune is a harder prune. A winter prune will encourage growth. So come springtime, because we've really reduced this down, it's going to encourage really strong, vigorous growth. If you do the same type of pruning in summertime, it can actually stunt it and it can actually slow down the growth. And sometimes you want that as well. So you have your summer pruning and you have your winter pruning. You also find too that if you really wanted to, if you were transplanting or moving a tree and you pruned the roots, pruning the roots can actually encourage a lot more fruit. Probably because the tree thinks that it's dying, so it'll actually put out some more flowers and more fruit because you've reduced the roots. If you prune the growth, so what you will do is that you'll give yourself a less amount of fruit, but there'll be a larger quantity, because you can imagine all this energy is going into less fruit. So there's a few different things to take into consideration, but the main principles are keep it open, get rid of the dead wood, prune it back to the main trunks that you want it to be, these main leaders that you want to send out, and do it on a regular basis. So if you do it every year, you'll keep it nice and healthy, and away you go. So you can have a look here, you'll see this is our finished product, and here's what we started off with. So you can see there's quite a big difference, isn't there? Now, if someone saw this, they'd say, what have you done to my tree? But this is a very, very healthy apricot tree. It's going to take off, it's going to be fantastic. So that's our apricot. Now what we make sure that we do is that we collect all our branches and stuff. Don't leave them around, because they can have little bits of disease and stuff in there. So we'll get those, we can mulch those up and we can use those later on. But for now, you'll give it a bit of a prune. You can even, if you like, give it a bit of a spray with a little bit of a copper or lime. It'll help any of the diseased pores that are in there, keep them subdued and minimise the risk of some cankers. So that's our apricot tree, all pruned. It looks fantastic, and it's going to be looking awesome come springtime and then into summer. Now we've done our apricot trees. What we'll do is we'll look at something a little bit different. Maybe we'll look at how about some grasses? Let's look at some grasses. So it's one thing to do fruit trees, but grasses grasses need to be pruned as well too. You can see these can look quite unruly and untidy and have gone a little bit out of control. So we're going to get our trusty hedges that we've sharpened, don't forget, and we're going to show you how to prune these to make them look not just a lot neater and a lot more tidier, but it's going to encourage new growth again for it to come up at springtime. So let's get into it and we'll show you how to keep it nice and tidy. So what you want to do is, at this stage we don't really know what plant is where, so we get in there and we start to lift them up. We can see, you can see they're starting to go into each other. So we can get our hedges. Now I like to prune it with the blade facing on an angle away from me as opposed to this. It can be quite uncomfortable to try and prune that way. So we go the blade facing down, and then we're probably going to cut this, say 20 to 30 centimetres from the base. So that's probably, again, maybe a third. So we're going to cut 2/3 off, about 2/3 off. So down. Now, these need to be really, really sharp to cut grasses properly. Otherwise, they just tear at the front. So again, just go around in a circle. You can move those ones away that you've pruned. Look at those lovely seed heads. Make sure that you get the bottom ones and any ones that have been missed. Get your hands down there, bend over, move it away. Again, you'll see some stragglers. Just cut those and have it in a nice little neat shape. And there you go. So that's quite easily. It makes it a lot easier when you've got the blades facing downwards, away from you. We'll move over to the next one. Same again. Cut around. It makes it so much easier when they're sharp. Move your body. If you move the blades away, it makes it a lot easier to know what you're cutting. And then just at the top, lastly, just to give it a nice shape. And that's great. Again, we'll keep going. You know, some grasses, you can actually burn them. And that's what they would do. The indigenous people would rather than, obviously didn't have any hedges in those days, so they would actually go through these grassed areas and burn them off, so it would encourage new growth again. And otherwise, if you don't prune them or burn them off, they just tend to die away. So we need to encourage new growth, and that's what we're doing here. And it just looks a lot nicer too, doesn't it? If you're going to prune them right down to the ground, you're probably going to have some blades that aren't going to come up again. So ideally you want to have around about a third, but I wouldn't be too fussed if you went lower than that. You're not going to kill the plant unless you really, really hacked it right down to the ground. And even then it might be all right, but it's fairly easy. It's a lot of this pruning isn't something that we need to be worried about, because plants, they survive. They're survivors. They've been around for a long time before us, and they'll be around for a long time after us. So they'll survive. Okay. So if you start now, you can start to see a little bit of a theme here, where it's starting to look a lot neater. Get those in there, and again, it's all about getting the right shape. You want to have a bit of consistency in your cuts so that it looks neat and tidy. But you know what, not to forget, it's your garden, so you can have it looking however you like. Me, I like to have it look a little bit neat and then have it grow nice and healthy. So you can see there, some of these screw, we'll do these back ones here. You'll see this little one over here, it's a tiny little thing. We'll take that up there, we'll get underneath and give it a bit of a haircut. Same one here. You can see it doesn't take all that long. A couple more, we'll get this out of our way. And we'll do this one. Put the rubbish in there. And there you have it. So I'd go around and just give it a bit of a touch up. Bit of an Edward Scissorhands. And there you go. So nice and neat. You can do this through the whole garden. And it's going to encourage some new growth. It's going to keep it nice and open. It's going to help rubbish not get trapped in your plants as well. So there's another bonus. Give it a bit of a little feed with maybe some blood and bone to help it encourage some growth as well. Bit of a water in, and come springtime, it'll go crazy. It'll come back again. So that's some grasses. You do the same with lomandras, poas, all sorts of grasses that are quite untidy like this. Even strappy leaf plants when it comes to dietes, which is the native iris, it's very common, and even plants like phormiums or flaxes, where you can cut, when they become unruly, you can cut them back, they'll come back again, and it really helps encourage that growth. So we've done some fruit trees, we've done some grasses. Let's try and find some hedges now, which we can do, and we might even talk about some roses. So let's go for a walk. We'll try and find ourselves a hedge. So here we have a cork oak. This tree goes to about 10 to 12 metres. You can see it's newly planted. And what we're going to do now is what we call uplifting. So as you can see, it's got its branches, basically from down the bottom all the way up, and it almost looks like a shrub. But we're going to shape it because we want it to be a tree. We want to start looking after it right now. So this is why we call uplifting it. And so if we look at the bottom branches here, you can see we'll start from the underneath. And again, we'll apply the same principles. So we'll get close to the trunk, nice clean cut, try and get as close as possible. Now, we'll see how high we can get, but usually it's probably about, I guess, depending on the size of the tree, but again, probably around about a third. You just want to lift it up, and you'll be able to just step back and have a look and see what you think looks good. But you chop all these bottom ones off, take them away, you step back and have a look. And then you can see already it's starting to take the shape of a tree as opposed to a shrub. These ones that are sort of dangling here, I get rid of them just to clean it up. This one as well. Now we're starting to get a little bit high, so we'll step back, we'll have a look at it, try and give it some balance. As you can see, there's no branches on this side here, there's some on this side, so we'll take these ones out. We'll take up these little suckers. Now, what you might find in some trees, especially a lot of ashes, some of the pyrus as well, which is the pears, they'll send out little suckers from down the bottom. So you'll see them, this hasn't got any at the moment, but it'll send out some shoots from underneath. You really want to prune those away, and if you can hack at them a little bit, it might deter them from coming up again. So fortunately we haven't got any here, well fortunately for the tree, but we haven't got any here to show you, but you'll see that the suckers coming from underneath, you really want to get on top of them straight away, because those suckers will actually grow very, very vigorously, and they'll actually overtake the tree itself because it's from the rootstock. So if you see suckers coming from the bottom of the tree, cut them away, get rid of them, and it'll keep it looking healthy. So as you can see, it's a nice looking tree. You can even underplant this later on with some dianella, some grasses, some lomandra, some clivia, something like that, that will give it an extra touch of aesthetic look, view. So you can see, this is what it used to look like. and then you've got this little cork oak after we've uplifted. I don't know about you guys, but I really like that look a lot better. So it's just very simple. It's what we call uplifting. Again, you can do this with most trees where you've got a central trunk. You want to raise it up. It'll open up underneath. You can plant underneath it, and you can do all sorts of things with it. It helps with, especially if you're going over pathways and stuff like that. So that's uplifting trees. The other thing that we want to talk about today, before I go, is roses. Now, it's a great time of the year now to be pruning your roses. It's fantastic. Unfortunately, we haven't got any here to show you, but a couple of principles. Keep the same principles as we did with the fruit trees. So you prune back all the dead wood, all the crossovers that are going inside each other. You want to prune to outside buds so they're facing outwards. You want to open up the rows so it helps with airflow, it helps with sunlight, it helps with reducing disease, black spot, dead wood, and it actually encourages really healthy roses as well. So outside buds, a vase shape, dead wood, crossovers. Give it a prune now in winter time. Again, bring it right back, 1/3, even a quarter. You won't be able to kill your rose. You can do it with a chainsaw. We've done it before with chainsaws and they'll come back. So I'm not suggesting you do it with a chainsaw, of course, but use your sharp secateurs or your loppers. Make sure that you disinfect them, prune, and also too, one really important thing with roses, make sure you've got good, tough leather gloves on. Have some safety glasses on as well. Even a hat with brim on it will really help, because there's nothing worse than getting into a rose and getting pricked with one of those thorns in the head or anywhere near your face at all. Even your hand, it does not tickle. So be wary of what you're doing. Be safe with it, but yeah, just enjoy it and be enthusiastic. Don't be too tentative with a rose, because you can get stuck into it. It's going to come back. They're tough as nails, and you know they'll love you for a big hard prune. So don't forget, again, open, dead wood, outside buds, with roses, with most plants. So that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the show and you've taken something away and you've learnt something. We will see you again soon with another show about something new to learn. Thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.